Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome to Stretford Paddock. We are here at Old Trafford. It's bright and early in the morning. We're heading to Hotel Football, which is right there behind me. And inside Hotel Football is Gary Neville, Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher. And we're going to go over there and have a little chinwag with them about all things Premier League. And I'm going to have a question or two for Gary Neville and Roy on Manchester United as well. So let's go check it out.
Hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Like, who do you want to see in that managerial seat at United? Are you happy with both of the choices?
Just for the record, Steve McLaren won a treble, by the way.
He only come in 2 half the season. Brian Kidd got the other half of that. He come in his first games at Notts Forest when he won 7-1, jumped on the back of a big good bandwagon.
I'm like Gary in the sense that I am a big fan of Pochettino and I have been a fan of his for a while. And the PSG thing hasn't quite turned me off him because I think what he did at Spurs would kind of have to be the job he kind of has to do at United in that, yes, we've got more resources, we'll spend a little bit more money, but he will have to deal with people above him making decisions that probably go against what is best for the team or whatever and try and get the best out of young players, academy players. We've seen what he did at Ajax. He not only built one team, he built two. And I think that's what kind of makes me think, oh, there's something there because even when he's sold his best players, he has gone again. So I like Poch, I like Ten Hag. I do think Ten Hag's got the momentum because of his recent work with Ajax, and that could probably give him the edge. But there's this thing that makes me think United might still go for Poch because of the fact that they're one of these people. They seem like this group of people that when they've got an idea that they had like 2 years ago, they're not going to go away from that. Like they're going to try and stick to that, even if there's other things out there. So I do kind of still feel like it may be Poch. I'd be all for Ten Hag.
What went wrong in the Tottenham interview with Ten Hag? The rumours he didn't interview well, but what?
He said something like a lack of charisma. That's just only something I read in the paper. When Jose's there, you talk about he is a charismatic man, isn't he? Jose Mourinho comes in the interview room.
Yeah. But when I hear managers getting interviewed, people said, "Oh, he came across well in an interview." I think everyone comes across well in an interview. You have to be a right idiot to come across badly in an interview because you're obviously going to be polite, you're going to do your homework. I think the interview process is well and good, but I still think everyone will have their opinions there. Pochettino stock, like any manager, can go up or down. It went down again a few weeks ago with the Champions League performance in Madrid, obviously, where they fell apart. But I still think you don't know anybody until they get into the building. It really. We can all throw opinions out here about 4 or 5 managers. I certainly wouldn't be against any ones that have been mentioned here, but you won't know until they get into and see the task in front of them, whether it be the players or the structure that's upstairs. Getting to really know the players, the personalities, the culture of the club, whatever values United stand for. No, I don't know, but they've certainly gone backwards. But having said all of that, I still think anyone who walks into Man United in the summer, and Man United could potentially finish 6th in the league, what a time to go in. There's 4 or 5 players' contracts were up. People think that's a bad thing. I think that might be a good thing. To let players move on, you're not stuck with these lads who've maybe already left the building mentally. You can start afresh, work with some good young players. They'll certainly be given money to spend. Mm-hmm. And again, there's the obsession with style of football. I don't ever remember my time at the club we ever spoke about styles of football. We spoke about winning. And I generally think if you're winning week in, week out, I know Simone, I know people there has to be a certain style of football, don't get me wrong. But as long as you're winning, that's where you get people in momentum and you get people back on side.
I wanted to ask Gary and Roy about the captain situation. I agree with what Gary was saying there about the Glazers. People talk about them being good businessmen, but businessmen don't run the club into the ground like this good businessman anyway. So, yeah, I would love to see them go, and kind of seeing how many offers there were for Chelsea kind of gives me hope, because a lot of people used to say, oh, who's going to buy a club for 3-4 billion? But when you see how many are lining up for Chelsea, it could possibly be the same for us. But about leadership, not only above the players, but the players, you were both captains, great captains for Manchester United, but you also spent periods where you weren't captain of the club. How did your life on and off the pitch change when you became captain? And look, I'm not Maguire's biggest fan of him as a player or as a captain. I don't necessarily think he should be captain. But could the captaincy be actually affecting his performances? Because I don't think he's this bad as a player either, like that we're seeing at the moment. And what changes could have happened there?
I want to answer that first because, to be fair, when Roy left, we had a massive problem in the change room. And to be fair, I had a massive problem because there's no way I was ever going to replace Roy Keane in that dressing room. You know, everybody in that changing room for 10 years had looked up to Roy, knew who the captain was, knew who the leader was. All of a sudden, he left in an instant, you know, basically just one day gone. And all of a sudden, like, I've got the armband on. And for 6 months, to be honest with you, there was self-doubt, thinking, how can I even think to replace Roy Keane? And I looked at the previous captains that have been at the club. And I suppose in some ways, maybe probably like Steve Bruce taking over from Brian Robson. Brucey was a brilliant leader, but he wasn't Brian Robson. But he was just a good man, Steve Bruce, in the dressing room. He was popular. And I just thought, you know something, after about 3 or 4 months, I just had to settle down and say, look, I am what I am, I play how I am, and I'm not the level of ability of the rest of the lads in the team, but that's all I can do. And I settled into it, not try to be something I'm not. I thought last year Maguire was growing and emerging as a captain of the team. There is no doubt the introduction of Cristiano into the club has meant that he feels inferior. And I can see that because I felt inferior when I first took over the captaincy when Roy left. I felt inferior. You just do. Naturally, you know, Harry Maguire will think, that's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the greatest player of all time. He's captain of his country. He wins European tournaments. And I know he's looking at me like, giving it that one on the pitch. and it undermines him. And Harry hasn't got the experience yet in a difficult time to be able to say, you know, sit down, you know. I was okay in the sense that we were still in a successful team, and actually the players around the club, we had a settled dressing room still. But it was difficult for me when I first took over because of that inferiority complex thing. And there's no doubt Harry Maguire's confidence will be knocked, and he will feel inferior. I've got no doubt to the other players in the team.
Yeah, no, I feel for Harry Maguire. Obviously, when I got the captaincy at United, I'd been there a number of years, was used to the club, and I use that word again, the culture of the club and what other captains did, tried to learn from it. Same at obviously Nottingham Forest with Stuart Pearce and people like that. And you have your own style, and again, we were a winning team, so that makes everything a lot easier. But I think for Harry, when he just came to the club, to be given the captaincy, to me, I was more worried about the other players, that none of them could seem to be able to take the responsibility. And Harry's come into a team that's struggling. I think it'd be difficult now to take it off him, to say, listen, we're taking the captaincy off you to help you focus on your own game. I don't think that's ideal. I think he'll just have to try and grow with it. Improve his,
do you think that's good for the dressing room?
I think it goes back to it. I think the one question I'd always say, people talk about captaincy, leadership, try and make sure you're playing well yourself. First of all, whatever about the different demands about tickets and media commitments, and you're the captain, you've got to go up and do the toss. Make sure you're playing well, and the rest will come from there. But while Harry is struggling for his own form, people will still come back to it and start throwing the captaincy at him. Just focus on playing well, and don't. You can get carried away with the captaincy. People can make it a bigger issue than what it is. First and foremost, try and be a good teammate, try and be a good player, try and train properly and do all the basics right, and the rest will fall into place. But United having a difficult spell. Harry's an easy target. I thought his performances last year weren't bad, but he's had some terrible games. And United are in a difficult spell, so they're going to look at certain targets. There's always players who will be targets for teams that are struggling. And Harry's an easy target because he's the captain, and some of the performances have been great. But it's hard to go back now and say to Harry Maguire, you might be better off giving the captaincy up. I think there's a long way back from him. I don't think that's a good option.
Confidence-wise.
Confidence-wise,
if he takes the captaincy off him.
I think go back to basics. Start
in the
playing
dressing room though, where people are like, I don't want to use, I was about to use the wrong word, like call him a fraud. I don't think that's the word, but like where he doesn't deserve that, so it's like it becomes more of a problem.
Yeah, but remember the manager gave it to him. What did he deserve?
The manager's not here no more that gave it.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, but that's managers come and go, and if you give him the captaincy, well, when you get the captaincy, you don't apply for it. The manager pulls you in. He must have seen something, whether it be Ollie and his staff or where, seen something in him and thought, we believe you can be a good leader, and he probably can be a good leader, and he probably will be. But he has to go back to being a good player first, and it comes from that. This idea that you can start order. Again, I used to remind myself as if you didn't have bad games yourself, but when it's not going your way or you're not up, go back to basics. Make sure I'm on top of my own game before I start trying to lead people or start giving out to people. Because again, players do look at you and going, well, don't you be having a go at me when you're struggling yourself. That's human nature. But I'm convinced the players in the dressing room aren't looking at Harry Maguire thinking, you don't deserve it or we don't respect. I think they do, but when a player's having a hard time, it's tough going.
Do you think they all do? Do you think they all do, Roy?
All respect him?
Do you think they all want him to be captain? I think there's clicks in that dressing room now.
Well, there might be this moment in time because obviously Man United seems there's obviously a lot of problems going on. But the captaincy, I don't think that's number one problem at Man United.
So there you have it. Let us know what you thought about everything that we discussed in that little chat inside Hotel Football. There was plenty to get your teeth stuck into. Make sure you're clicking that subscribe button, liking, commenting and sharing. And of course, thank you to Gary Neville, Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher as well. And of course, Sky Bet. Until next time, I've been Adam McKola. We're out of here.